David, how's it going? Thanks for joining. Scrap that. Doxing my sources over here. We'll begin now. All right.
David Samson with us.
David Samson with us.
Leaving it.
No, you were not.
Yes, you are leaving it. You got to leave it.
No, fuck no.
We can bleep it.
No.
Don't bleep
Cut
it.
that. No,
Just
yes.
leave it in.
I was joking. I didn't know this was like a serious
I demand
sensitive
that.
thing.
I demand that.
Yeah.
I demand that.
Jesse did the thing that I do. It's like,
won't.
Damn, we're
wow,
on the same
so-and-so
page.
No, we
really
are
said
not
that,
keeping
huh?
Yeah, just leave it in.
No, we are
You
not.
picked the right name.
Just leave it
Look
in.
at me. Everybody. I will take this all the way up
Mike,
to human
if we-
resources
Mike,
if I have
If
to.
we
Get up and do
bleep
it.
what she
He's
said,
not into that.
Mike, if
No.
we bleep what she said, there's no way no one knows anything.
No. Gone.
Leave it in.
No.
David
Gone.
Samson joins us
Gone.
now to begin the local hour that began 2 or 3 minutes ago. Welcome, David. Good seeing you. Nothing Personal is the name of his podcast. I continue to encourage all of you to listen to David Samson because he is covering terrain that a lot of people in mainstream media are not covering at all because it's complicated subject matter. Let's begin with your objection to what I had to say about Lamar Jackson yesterday. You said I was completely wrong. How and why am I completely wrong?
Well, because you're so emotional and that you somehow have a view that there is loyalty and that there was some sort of reason that could even be described as nefarious for what the Ravens have done with Lamar. And it is exactly in accordance with my show. It's just business. You are not going to sign any player because of what another owner has done mistakenly. You don't let one owner move a market. Go back to A-Rod when he signed with Texas for $252. There is natural creep in salary, but what's happened with NFL and quarterbacks is simply outrageous. And the NFL and the owners realize that it is not worth it to pay these quarterbacks these numbers. The Watson number specifically is what I'm talking about. And to me, you spent the time saying, well, Watson has that, therefore Jackson should too because he's an MVP, he's better. And why are teams coming out and saying they're not going to do it? Because they know what Jackson wants. Therefore, they're not going to get involved in trying to give him what he wants because no one is getting $230 guaranteed.
Well, that's collusion, and
no, it's not.
Yes, it is.
That's not the definition of collusion.
It's collusion.
You can use the word.
When all the owners are getting together saying we cannot give this to Lamar Jackson, it's collusion.
They're getting together with themselves. There's no meeting where they go through and say that we are going to not sign a player.
No, there's no
for
group chat
$230.
where they're just dragging Jimmy Haslam at every turn saying we have to stop this. No, you're right. Come on, man.
That's what collusion is. I am right.
Okay, look, David, you are consistently pro-management, and I am just hold on. Just let me finish. Just you had your say. I am consistently pro-labor. I enjoy more how Lamar Jackson, the business of Lamar Jackson, goes about making money than I do the people he's competing with in a system that they have to salary cap because they can't control themselves because there's always a Jimmy Haslam out there. And this is the perfect crossroads, David, perfect, where all of football's shit resides because they don't want to give guaranteed contracts to everybody or anybody. They know that football's going to football, and the Ravens are trying to prevent, by not guaranteeing anything, footballing them on Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson is trying to prevent footballing him.
I'm sorry, David. How dumb of me to think that the NFL would collude against a black quarterback. I've never seen that before in that league before.
This is not a racial issue, Mike.
No, but come on. There's been collusion in this league, and if they want to collude against Lamar Jackson, fine. But guess what? Joe Burrow is going to get that Deshaun Watson deal.
I will bet you right now that Joe Burrow does not get $230 million guaranteed. And this is not people not wanting to pay Lamar Jackson. The Ravens offered to pay Lamar Jackson exactly where he should be, which is higher than anybody and lower than Watson.
David, there is more guaranteed money for Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson. It's not just that we're talking about Deshaun Watson here because Lamar Jackson is looking at the entirety of the market and the NFL teams are saying, well, wait a minute. If we did that with Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, we're in big trouble if we give away a lot of guaranteed money. But I do ask you to consider for a minute, because I don't think we actually disagree, that the Ravens can be doing this brilliantly at business. And it doesn't mean that Lamar is wrong. And it doesn't mean that it's wrong that I want Lamar to get paid because the market has now been set, and it's not his job to make sure that the owners control their spending. He should get he should try to get as much as he can. It's what he's trying to do. And the part that's dirty about it, even though it's good business for the Ravens, is the Ravens know that this is going to cost any other team more than it costs them, because none of them want to go guaranteed, and now they have to go guaranteed plus 2 first-round picks.
It's not that they don't want to go guaranteed. They don't want to go guaranteed at the Watson level. You're making it sound as though the Ravens have not even made Lamar Jackson an offer, and that's not true. They have made him an offer my guess is to make him the second highest guaranteed quarterback ever.
David, what I am saying, though, is both sides are trying to prevent football from injuring their quarterback. He is a quarterback who is hurt the last couple of seasons. He plays a style that most people are afraid to guarantee money to. And he does it in a system where they don't know how and have never known how to evaluate him. They don't know how to evaluate that quarterback's value, period.
That's not right. They have evaluated him, and they do evaluate him, even with the fact that he missed 5 games the last 2 years. They do evaluate him that they would make him the second highest guaranteed quarterback in the National Football League. So I don't even understand what your point of view is. So the reason I said you were wrong is your point of view came out of being so pro-player. Mine is not being out of being pro-management. It's about explaining how it actually works during these negotiations. Forget the fact that he doesn't have an agent, because that's just, I happen to agree with that you can use a lawyer just as easily when you're at that caliber of player. You don't need an agent. As you know, in our business, agents try to drum up interest, try to figure out where you can go, what would be a good fit, what platforms would be a good fit that you would not otherwise have access to. In sports, I don't need Scott Boras to tell me that Carlos Correa is available or to help me value Carlos Correa. I do need an agent to tell me that I've got a player in Korea, or I have a young player in college, or a 3+ player, which means a young player in baseball, who is not even approaching the peak of his ability. That agents are good for. But when you're Lamar Jackson, you just need a lawyer. And don't kid yourself, he has a lawyer. He just doesn't have an agent, so he's paying hourly instead of a percentage of his deal. That's good business by Lamar Jackson, so I'm not criticizing that. But the Ravens have negotiated and made offers. He just wants to break Watson because he thinks he's better than Watson. But Haslam's Watson deal is not the bellwether deal.
David, you can be cold about these things, so I want to bring in Amin, who also has front office experience, because what I am saying, and I don't know what you would disagree here with, is that both things can be true. This can be brilliant as a business move by the Ravens, and Lamar's allowed to be insulted by it and hurt by it. The humanity of it is, I'm your prized player. Why are you making me see if someone else values me more than you value me? Shouldn't you value me the most?
Yeah, David, you opened with saying that Dan was emotional and was, making assumptions, and I don't think Dan was doing that. When you were doing your opening statement, I was looking at Dan, and I was kind of cocking my eyebrow a little bit like, I don't think that's what Dan said yesterday. He said what he just said right now, which is it's totally understandable for Lamar Jackson to be insulted or to feel underappreciated, even if there is a strong business reason for the Ravens to approach the way they've approached. There's also stands to reason that players do track these things. Players do care. Players do think of this as a form of appreciation. We talked about it before in the NBA, obviously, because we have max deals. It can only pay you so much. But if, in theory, I paid one player.
You're so close. Power through it.
I can hear
You
it
are
in
having
there.
so much trouble.
I can hear it in
He
there.
doesn't
You got
have the
this.
talk back.
I don't have a mute button.
You
He
got
doesn't
this.
have
You got
anything.
this.
Go ahead.
As soon as
can-
you
we're here
started
for you.
talking back here, I'm like, I can hear it in
You're
about 30
afraid
seconds.
of the fine,
It's gonna
right?
be
got
You're
it.
afraid of the $5
terrified.
fine.
The great ones sell their bodies not today.
Shout out to
through
Mark
it.
Jackson.
Power through it.
There are players that if I told them, hey, I'm going to pay you $1 less than max, that is a massive affront. Not because a dollar means that much to them, but in their minds, you're telling me I'm not as good as that guy over there.
I'm so sorry that they get offended by getting $1 less than max.
Oh, Jesus.
What's the opposite of nominating something for a Suey? It was like the worst acting I've ever heard in my life.
Ass on.
I mean, I absolutely
What was that
understand,
impression? The man?
But when you're running a team, I mean, when you're making offers, you sit in the front office, and are you thinking about the respect level of the offer you're making to the player?
It depends on the player. I told the story yesterday about Channing Frye when he became a free agent, and for us, we negotiated hard. But what happened was, in the context of the negotiation, we stupidly allowed him the night to think about an offer, and overnight, 3 more deals got signed around the league by clearly lesser players. So at that point, his agent, who was Rob Pelinka, was like, "Look, guys, like that deal is a non-starter now. The market has moved, and so now we're up here. Now we still tried and fought and all that stuff and try to get the best possible deal that we could, but that's very different than, for instance, a star player that same offseason. Same offseason was Amari Stoudemire, and we gave him a max deal where the first 2 seasons were guaranteed 100%. The third year was 75% guaranteed based on if he played a certain amount of minutes in the first 2 years. The 4th year and the 5th year were 50% guaranteed if he played a certain amount of minutes in year 3 and year 4, et cetera, et cetera. A very fair deal for a guy who had a bunch of injury issues and was uninsurable, right? Meaning if he has a career-ending injury to either knee or because of his eye, you're on the hook, as opposed to usually 80% insurance picks up. And Amari looked at that deal and then went to New York, and they gave him 100% guarantee, and that was it.
And you were okay because you valued the player a certain way, and you were not going to stray from the processes that you have to value players.
Yes.
That is how a front office works.
David, you've never had a player so important that you have to consider his feelings?
Oh, my God, no. No, I don't care.
Oh, my God.
It's a baseball thing?
Oh,
No, you just did the same thing.
No, but it was different for us, right? It was different because the insurance risks, and we had an ownership that wasn't committed to winning to that level
That
of
sounds so
finance.
goddamn cold.
But
No,
I'm
I don't-
sorry,
no, but
you're asking
Mike,
me
I
to
don't-
talk about, not today, you're asking me to talk about what it was when I was the president of a major league team.
Yeah.
And by the way, Amin, can we talk about insurance for a minute, because you're dropping insurance. Many owners self-insure because the premiums are so high to insure these players that you actually just secrete away money in a segregated account, which is what self-insuring is, where you take the chance and you'll pay the salary out, because you end up litigating with the insurance company if there's any sort of injury because they don't want to pay. So I don't think that the insurance reason, we've never not signed a player because they're uninsurable, because we know going in when we're negotiating with the player that we know we're with our insurance company and our insurance brokers, and we know that we're going to have a problem because the premium is going to be so high. And then there's the deductible where they have to miss a full year before you even start to get paid money back.
41 games
so
for us.
that's not a reason not to sign a player. Was that the sole reason that you did not that you would not sign a player ever?
For in the case of Amari Stoudemire, yes, we were not comfortable because again, we didn't have an ownership that was like, whatever, sign it. We went to the conference finals. We could have gone to the finals. Let's keep the band together. They were like, oh, well, in that case, and we just kind of aborted that whole mission. But
do you think the Ravens have any issue with Lamar Jackson's injury history?
of
Or any
course,
beef
it's
or anything to think about?
a concern. Sure,
Yeah, their last 2 seasons have kind of been undone by it. Not kind of. They have been.
Yeah.
They have been. So
Yeah.
I think that that's very reasonable.
But
that
he's
they
also
would
made
say-
their last few seasons because we've seen what the options are when he's not available. And there's a reason why their season gets undone, because the former MVP is not in there and he's that valuable to them.
But I want to point out, David, I don't think anyone here is saying Lamar Jackson is worth every last dollar. That so what we're saying is, man, like, this is first of all, there's a chance he walks out the door, and for us, Amari Stoudemire walked out the door, and we turned into a not good team.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real thing,
Right.
there.
And I think in discussing the Lamar Jackson conversation, there's an important data point. Yes, it's factual. It's undone 2 seasons. But if he had his deal, maybe he plays through that last year. So it's kind of cherry picking an argument.
Sure. I mean, I can't. I don't know. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. But I think the reality is, David, you're saying, well, the business says let him walk, but the business, this sports is measured on two metrics. It's not like being a manufacturing widgets or whatever, where it's like the bottom line is our championship. There's also another thing called the championship that we're going for. And for us, the money strategy was right. Let him walk. And by the way, he got hurt soon thereafter and never was the same. So we were right to not put that money down over the span of 5 years. But the reality was the team then missed the playoffs for 10 straight years after that. So I don't know if we had kept him, would we have been great for one more year? Maybe we would have won a championship and would have made all of that worth it. But as it was, we saved a bunch of money and sucked forever.
Well, you don't suck now.
Well, I don't,
Man, if you're rationalizing 10 years of irrelevance as it being worth avoiding
more
that
than irrelevance, Mike.
mediocrity.
No, irrelevance is
Indifference.
mediocrity. Indifference is mediocrity. Awful. That franchise was awful for a decade.
Yeah, that's too long to be awful.
I mean,
it's too long. David, when you watch Jerry Maguire, do you get really excited when Glenn Fry says, "No, I'm not paying him"? When Cush betrays Jerry Maguire, you're like, "Oh yeah, shit,
when
put that in my
goes
veins."
Like this, when Maguire puts his fingers together, like, "Oh, you're gonna pay me."
Oh,
I love that.
When they're saying "Show me the money," you're like, "No, don't do it. Don't show him the money.
Don't show him the money.
Glenn Fry, don't do it."
I love Jerry Maguire. I love Cameron Crowe. So
Yeah.
no, I think you guys are misunderstanding.
It's not
what
show
my
friends;
role
it's show
was
business.
As president of a team, because it's not what you're thinking. My job is to be responsible for the money that's going out the door. And if you can win a World Series while you're doing it, if you can be competitive into September while you're doing it, if you can make the playoffs while you're doing it, that's great. But you can't run an irresponsible business. It's not sustainable. It's just not. That's
You would
the
like to see
reality.
the sequel of Jerry Maguire where Rod Tidwell's got $40 million of dead money on their salary cap, and they regret it because he never was able to shake off that injury against the Cowboys.
About accounting.
That's something
Let's show
we
the
didn't
sequel
mention, by the way.
where the Arizona Cardinals are totally undone by Rod Tidwell's contract.
Where is the non-exclusive franchise tag? Where is that from? Do you know what the provenance of that is?
Oh, you gonna give us origin story for it?
I'm just curious if you know where that comes from. Did owners make that up? Did they just decide that's the way we're going to screw players, is doing non-exclusive franchise tags and exclusive franchise tags?
I don't know the story. I mean, obviously,
Are you going to tell me it was a players' union concept?
it was
I'm going
close.
to tell you it's collectively bargained.
It's all collectively bargained, and Sean Gilbert's the only
it's
one.
because the owners never have the players over a barrel on those things.
How many players, other than one that Dan just mentioned while Mike was talking, how many players have switched teams under a non-exclusive tag?
Yeah, only Sean Gilbert many years ago as a defensive tackler.
One.
Mhm.
So all of this talk, Dan, about how there's bluffs being called and there's not respect and love being shown to Lamar, it's a tool that's being used that is prescribed to be used by teams and players.
But David, you don't assign any value to face a franchise. You immediately become a regional franchise.
No, Dan, he doesn't because it's not show friends; it's show business.
Okay, but those
It's
things
show
have
Seinfeld.
but those things have value.
Yeah, they do intrinsically to guys like us. To the heartless? No, they don't.
no, but
To
that's
the
why
man?
you guys aren't
No.
running teams.
Wait a minute.
Oh well, wait, you're
Jimmy
not running a
Haslam's
team.
running a team.
You're
Correct?
running a
Right.
team.
No, I-
Mike
I
runs the
did
Sense
it,
of
and now
Cyclones
I'm not
excellently.
doing it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, we're
There
in
you go.
last
If
place,
you want
but
to
I do
impugn
run
my
a team.
credibility
A former
to discuss front
champion.
office actions, you can, but it would be misguided. I have done something that you haven't done, much like you've done so many things
Bullshit!
that
I won the
haven't done.
2022 spring championship.
Tell him
in
about this year.
Metalcore.
Yeah, well, they're
The
0-6
closest
this
in the
year.
room
It was worth
is
it.
Amin and Chris Cody.
Oh wow, Chris.
Oh
Chris
wow!
is in it.
See, turning us against each
Well, I did run the team the year we won the championship, and Mike just swooped in for the championship.
Wow.
game.
other. I cared
Yeah.
about the players.
Hold on.
I cared about.
I think you're on a cruise too.
Technically, ever since Mike's been hands-on, we kind of know what's happening.
You mismanaged.
Got to be careful who you surround yourself with, Cody. Everyone's
you
going to
pick
want a
the
piece of
keepers.
your action.
You pick the keepers. All right, David. I've had about enough of you. The Oscars are this weekend. What's your pick for Best Picture, and then give us your review.
God, that was so loving. Thank you.
It's not show friends; it's show business. Here's about love. You've been a very good fountain of content for us over the years, but that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is the next segment. So get on with it.
Your feelings don't matter here.
it's thank God my feelings don't matter, because if they did, then we'd never do these segments. I would like to talk about something called the Ariel phenomenon. And before you all jump down my throat, the Ariel phenomenon is a movie about an interaction in Zimbabwe between 60 kids at a school and an alien spaceship and an alien. And this is a documentary on Apple, and it is brilliant if you have not seen it. It is scary. It is interesting. The story is that at a school, they were playing on the playground one day, and all of it, a school called Ariel in Zimbabwe, in Africa, a bunch of kids, different ages, but young, all of a sudden look out yonder and see about 40 feet away some sort of flashing light, some sort of thing that has landed, and there's a guy standing there, and I say guy, and that's wrong of me to say, a thing standing there with eyes sort of above the lips that is an alien. And there are some people who believe that the alien was communicating with these kids. Some of the kids thought that they started having different thoughts that they didn't otherwise have. They were interviewed by people from around the world, these kids. Their stories were tested. And their stories were all different about the experience. And that informed the psychologists who interviewed them that they were all telling the truth, that it wasn't fixed, that they weren't making it up. They all drew pictures, and the pictures of the aliens were different enough but similar enough to make it look like it wasn't a plot for aliens in Zimbabwe. Having been to Zimbabwe, I can tell you that, and that's not a humble brag, this is to inform you that there aren't kids sitting around trying to get famous for seeing aliens. This happened. It's called the Ariel phenomenon, and it is worth an amazing discussion. It's an amazing watch, and it will get you thinking about the hubris that we have as humanity, thinking that we are alone, because we are clearly not. Look at me, Louie, to say I've been to Zimbabwe.
Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at LeBatard Show. Is it a look at me, Louie, to say I have been to Zimbabwe? Oscar review, Oscar preview?
You're not going to talk about aliens? You're just going to take the movie and say you don't agree, you agree?
I want to watch it. Thank you for the recommendation.
David, do you believe in aliens?
I believe it is impossible that we are the only life in the universe.
You believe that you saw...
Mathematically, it's impossible.
I'm not talking about I'm talking about like intelligent life that is capable of interstellar travel.
You watched this documentary and believed something you didn't believe before watching this documentary?
Yes.
Ooh, I like those types.
That's the point of it.
All right.
I was cynical before, and now I'm just comforted in the knowledge that it is true.
This proved it to you?
This is what I'm saying. That's why I want you to watch this documentary.
Where is it?
Apple.
Because
Apple?
it's on Apple. Because for me, what I always thought to be true but never really understood why I thought it and didn't want to listen to the quote-unquote kooks, that is the kooky people. Now, listening to these kids and watching the follow-up and watching the Harvard psychologist deal with these kids and devote his life to making these kids heard and understood, and the impact it's had on the lives of these kids who had this experience, it was enough. One would wonder why they chose Zimbabwe, and I don't have a great answer for that.
No, I have a
They're
great
on
answer.
safari.
Choosing Kalamazoo.
They have good winter sports.
No, I have a great answer for that. It's because, as you said, no one in Zimbabwe is trying to go viral. So it's like, how can I be the most version of authentic
stealth. Social
it was
media
viral
stealth.
30 years ago?
Is that when it happened?
Yeah,
his
this
story
happened
falls
1994.
Never mind.
What do you?
Hashtag has the alien landed yet? Remember that whole saga?
What is the Oscar
Has Justine landed yet?
preview you're giving us?
I'm doing all of my picks on Tomorrow's Nothing Personal, but I'll give you my best picture pick here, which is Everything Everywhere All at Once. That is going to win. I preferred Banshees of Inisherin as a movie. I even preferred Tar as a movie, but Everything Everywhere has the momentum to win. But everyone's going to watch the Oscars to see what Jimmy Kimmel does, how he deals with the Chris Rock, which I discussed on yesterday's show. That selective outrage special was so bad and so disappointing that I can't even tell you. I watched the whole thing, and he had a year to prepare to figure out what he was going to say about Will Smith, and it just didn't land for me. But there's going to be follow-up during the Oscars. It's the 800-pound gorilla in the room that will have to be addressed. Will Smith, who can't go to the Oscars for another 9 years after this year, luckily wasn't nominated because then it would be an interesting situation, nor should he have been. The Best Actor category is stacked. And so I'm interested what Jimmy Kimmel's going to do, because the Oscars, like other events, have to do something to get a bigger audience. It's been an issue. So they're going to try to be hip, try to be cool, try to be funny. But at the end of the day, it's an award show that most people don't want to watch, but I do. But if you haven't seen Everything Everywhere at Once, see it twice. The first time you won't understand it. The second time you will love it.
He's the host of Nothing Personal with David Samson. Check out tomorrow's episode where he'll go in depth in the Oscars, and follow him on Twitter at David P. Samson. David, we'll talk to you next week.
See ya.
This Heat season's had a lot of close games down to the wire, a lot of exciting games. I think they've had 28 games where the margin has been 4 points or less.
36, 5 points, or 37 after
I
last
think
night.
wasn't the record like 32? They're coming close to more close games than any team has ever played in a season.
So I think they're bad. And if I were Ryan Cortez and just true Heat optimist and Heat homer, I'm thinking we've lost a lot of these close games. We have not been shooting well.
They've won more of them than they've lost.
Right, but
they lost a large quantity, is what he's saying.
yeah, but at some point the shooting's got to turn around. Max Strus misses a what could have been a game-tying three on a good look, and at some point the luck's got to turn around. And when I'm watching this team, I don't think that they're just not as good. They're not as good as
Well, they
Cleveland.
can't shoot. Period. Like
But
that's it, Mike. It's
that's
not
such
going
a
to turn
weird
around.
part
They
to me.
can't shoot.
Mike.
They cannot shoot.
They're 67
They're
games
la-
in.
They're
I mean,
last.
They also had just really bad. Eric Spoelstra. This is not his first year doing this. There was some puzzling.
Oh, but he's great
late
at the
game
end of games,
execution.
and he got good looks at the end of games. And the fact
Yeah,
that they
but
were
why
even
did
in
they
that
foul?
game
Like
with
they
24 turnovers
They
is
milked
crazy.
like 20 seconds off the shot clock.
Yeah, it was bad.
To inevitably foul. It ended up working out because they split the free throws anyways. But you didn't extend the game. All you want to do in that spot is extend the game. I was just so confused watching them because they scrapped and fought so hard to get back into the game, and then they just nuked it. They threw it all away.
They got it down to 98, 97, and then everything kind of fell apart after that. It's not that they should have fouled earlier. It's either foul quick or run out that clock.
Yeah, or just let the 9 seconds go.
There was 7 seconds left on the shot clock when the foul was committed. And by the way, they had a foul to give, so it wasn't even like, all right, put him on the line. Now you had to do it all over
The foul to
again.
give resulted in a 5-second violation,
Yes.
which would have been helpful, 20 seconds earlier.
And it's rare for John Crotty to be screaming, get a timeout there. You got to get – he does not do that very often. That doesn't happen to the Heat very often, where a home broadcaster is screaming at the screen that the coach is making a mistake.
Mike English used to do it all the time.
Yes.
But you're right. Crotty never does it.
Not very often. But, I mean, you were there, right?
I was there. I thought it was weird that Spo was hung up on the foul that Bam caught at the end for wrapping his arm around.
That was another good instance where Crotty, who's finding his voice, I think, coincidentally, and is really improving on that broadcast. Crotty wasn't playing that game. Like, Bam fouled him.
Bam fouled him. I mean, it was clear as day. He wrapped his arm around him and tugged, and that's why Allen didn't have a clear, clean catch of the ball. And I thought, like, at the time, I got why everyone got upset. You're in the heat of the game. Like, oh, that's not a foul. And then we watched the replay. I was like, oh, yeah, it's clearly a foul. But Spo came in his post-game presser and said, I wish we could have seen what would have happened had they not called that one. I'm like, what are you talking about? No, this is Occam's razor. It's exactly what it is. There's no going around it. They can't shoot. And so everything is condensed. They got the shots last night. They could not make them. They shot, 27% from three? I think if you take out Tyler Hero, who was 4 of 8, it gets even way more abysmal. No one else shot even close to decent outside of Tyler Hero. And unfortunately, in the game, Oladipo was the recipient of many of those opportunities.
So many of them late.
And it was just, but it was by design, right? You're open for a reason.
By design, Cleveland's design.
No, but Amin's right. It's that Hockman's razor thing. I mean, he's right. I was just going to say it. I mean,
what do you think that is, by the way? Just when he says, do you have any theories?
Something you shave with?
Just the context that he used it in, because he did explain it. He said right afterward, it's the simplest thing, or it's the thing that you think it is.
Is that what it is? I didn't hear that part.
You're too busy listening to Mike.
I thought it was like the Hockman burger.
I don't know that there is something more frustrating about that game to Heat fans than why is Oladipo taking all the important
Guy's
shots.
got a razor now. I mean,
Salute to Mark Hotman. Back to you.
He's taking those shots because he's getting those shots, and he's getting those shots because the defense is designed to not allow those other guys to shoot. And furthermore, it's making life harder for Jimmy.
It's making life harder for me. I don't want to see Victor Oladipo anymore. I haven't wanted to see Victor Oladipo when he was playing well for that brief
you
moment in
haven't
time.
cared all year.
I was watching
what's
last night.
happening here?
I got invested because now, I want to avoid the play-in. I want to feel like I've got a shot, and I still love the Miami Heat.
You got some bandwidth back, didn't you? A little bit.
A little bit.
What changed, Mike?
Yeah, what changed?
I'm waiting to see what Selection Sunday brings for my women's basketball team. So I had time to watch that, caught up on Last of Us, and I wanted to watch the Cavs
Last
game.
of Us was good.
Last of Us was real
Last
good
of Us
this
was
week.
brilliant.
Oh my
The
god!
people are the monsters.
Yeah.
Who would have thought,
Yeah.
Dan?
That women's post game press conference didn't seem like they feel like they're making the tournament, Mike. That seemed like a goodbye press
No,
conference.
it's all right. Like they'll get a high seed in the NIT, and I get to send off Destiny and the seniors. But
The men played today, right?
The men played today at noon. I wanted the revenge game against Jim Boeheim, but instead it's just going to be two teams that bought their teams meeting up here.
And then he quit.
Well, can we talk about this for a
And then
second?
Hey, Jim Boeheim, you putz.
Did he get
Get
fired?
out of this
Oh, no.
sport. You know,
Oh, no.
I know you're one of the
Oh,
legends
no.
of the sport,
Mike,
and
Mike,
you introduced
Mike.
this.
Mike, he's been very good to this show over the years.
Jim
Come
Boeheim,
on, Mike. Yes.
Jim Boeheim, Jim Boeheim, the 2-3 zone. Look, let me tell you something.
Oh, no.
Fab
You
Melo
either-
stood tall in that 2-3 zone, by the way.
You either retire a hero or you suck coaching long enough to become a villain. And that's what's happened, Jim Boeheim. Did you see that post-game press conference? He was literally a muttering old man
Just please stop for a second, okay? I believe
shouting into a tin can.
Hold on. Hold
Damn.
on. Slow down. Pull it back, right?
Fab Mello.
Yeah. I told
Stood tall in that center 2-3. He was an
Tony
anchor.
was-
He was an anchor.
He was good. You're so right. Him in his cement shoes. You just put him right
couldn't
under,
move him, Dan.
Put him right under the rim.
Tony-
Who's moving it?
Tony, did you
Who?
post him up?
Never. He was in. They were still in the 2-3 at Sagemont, by the way. I couldn't get it. I couldn't do anything.
Mike, the part that it's not right for you to do as someone who cares about sports and cares about people. 47 years of service
You
to
know what's
coaching.
not right to do, Dan? When you're not good enough anymore and to just start pointing fingers and throwing out accusations just because you don't got it. Just because you lost it. And you lost it to Jim Larrañaga, who I think is almost as old as you are. Just stop it. Just stop all of it. You stop with the excuses.
Well, he
you
is stopping.
embarrass
Well,
yourself.
he is
done,
No,
Mike.
it's like, what?
Stopping.
No,
It's
no, no,
over.
no,
Mike,
no.
he's
It's not his cho-
gone.
It's
The
not
guy
his
quit.
choice. He didn't quit.
do
He
you
was
mean?
doing like Ask the University.
It was weird. It was never before has
I feel
a
like the guy's gonna hand me a butterscotch candy every time he speaks.
This is getting very ageist.
It is.
I
Yeah.
love a butterscotch.
I mean,
candy.
that's nice. Yeah.
Good. You know
So
what?
do
I apologize to those
Werther's
people
Originals?
that are
Underrated
certain age and still know.
my God.
What about those watermelon ones? Those are bad.
Oh, those are underrated too.
No, those
Strawberry-
suck.
Strawberry
Don't
one?
sleep
Is it
on
strawberry or
caramel.
watermelon?
It's
Strawberry. It's got
Strawberry.
that little jelly there.
Oh, I
those
hate those.
suck.
Is that the one
great.
that
Those
has
are
the
bad.
strawberry
That's what
looking
you
wrapper?
are, Jim
You hate
Boeheim.
those?
Those are
Boeheim.
bad.
those.
Or the little mints that
Wait
come in
a
the
minute.
plastic bag.
He
He
Ugh,
doesn't like
disgusting.
Tony's bad mouthing the strawberry. I
I
think
am.
the butterscotch and that little strawberry
They
thing.
remind me
I
of
love a
childhood.
Werther's original.
Delightful.
Awful.
You're secretly
I like the
old
remix.
and also so
Me and
young.
Jim Boeheim, we got a lot of time to watch Columbo now. But I'm not going to
Put it on the poll,
That guy's
Ginger.
never leaving.
My
the
biggest
town.
disappointment this Hurricanes basketball season wasn't the buzzer beater that FSU hit to spoil our undefeated home court record. It was the fact that Wake Forest ripped the joy away from me that I would have had at noon today, being the one to end this clown.
The Deeks.
Jeez.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
not right what he's
At
doing.
least you're
It's
not
not.
emotional about it.
It was the press conference was weird though because he's like, I don't know, leave it to the university, and then they put out a statement. They were like, he's not our coach anymore. Congrats, congrats to our new coach.
It was a weird ending. I want to put on the poll at LeBatard Show. Do you love Werther's Originals?
Oh.
Are Werther? They're really good. Are Werther's Originals old people candy?
If only Jim Boeheim knew how to work a computer, then he'd be able to vote on this poll.
Clean up on out too.
And also at LeBatard Show, do you like
He told us he doesn't know how to work a computer. I'm not taking liberties here.
I know.
You're using his old facts
you're
against
kicking
him.
a man
Yes.
while he's
You
down.
really are.
An old man.
That is correct. But also put on the poll at LeBatard Show, the strawberry candy wrapped in the strawberry wrapper.
No one even knows
So
what they're
bad.
called.
So bad.
No
so
one,
bad.
It's
no
my
one here knows what
strawberry
they're
candies.
called.
They're called the
I
little
mean,
strawberry candy.
Jim
My widow
Boeheim,
would
If
bring
they
them
were
up to me. I was like,
iconic,
get
you
out
would
of
know
here.
what they're called.
Jim Boeheim, if I weren't in the public eye, I would love to meet you one-on-one. I'd teach you a lesson. I would.
He would kick your ass.
No, bullshit.
What does that mean? What do you? I
He's
don't.
got hip dysplasia. He
Strawberry,
has to.
they're called strawberry bonbons.
Oh, that's a name.
Just a good tongue lashing. That's what I'd give him.
Hell yeah.
The part that's simply wrong. It's simply wrong what you're doing. After 47 years of service, I know that we don't allow anybody in sports to get the ending right.
Yes,
but
we do.
Mike, you just went after him with "you putz, you clown" after 47
He
years.
went, he
deserves
drew
better
first blood.
File.
I mean, that's fair.
He drew first blood.
I haven't talked about Jim Boeheim for 10 years. Why would I?
What'd he say about you?
He was on like 5 years
He
ago.
said Miami bought a team. That's what pissed him off.
He know what he did to Mike. I know.
Yeah,
Jim,
just-
he know what he did.
Just like Zaslow.
Don't worry about it.
Just
He know
like
what he did.
Zaslow and Mackenzie Weegar. Oh, he knows what he did. He knows what he did.
He deserves better than "you putz,
he
you
doesn't.
clown."
No, he doesn't. He
But
doesn't deserve
Syracuse
anything
didn't
from
give
me.
him better than "you putz, you clown."
He didn't give himself better.
That was terrible.
Reinvent yourself, guy.
How do you end that way? How that is
With a miscommunication?
I mean, just when you're like, I'm retiring, I'm not retiring as the school. The press conference was one of the weirdest exits I've ever seen for 47 years of service.
I was reading Dan Wetzel's column about it in Yahoo Sports, and
Love his pretzels.
the lead was a anecdote about him going out to dinner with Rick Pitino and their wives once on vacation.
Oh, boy.
And they were talking about like oh, if you could live anywhere, where would it be? And they were like, Italy. And they were like naming all these like places far off. And he was like, Syracuse.
Yeah.
And they were like, dude, like, be real. And he's like, no, Syracuse. And they just left. They left him there. They were
It's
like,
all he
all right.
knows. I mean,
He's just like obsessed with Syracuse, New York, and he's gonna live there until he dies. And this was the only thing he ever wanted in his life, and he got it, and now he's done.
I don't want to derail the conversation, but comes from the same cloth as Josh Hart being asked, "Are you tired after playing 96 minutes in 2 games?" And he says, "No, there are people who get up at 6 a.m. and work 12 hours."
That was so pay the whales, save the teachers.
Oh my god,
awesome.
Yeah, but they're all doing it. Everyone in New York now is
Yeah.
doing this weird Tibbs talk.
I mean, it's kind of legit with Josh, though. He's a different dude.
Do you see? Wait, hold on. Do you hear what Julius Randle said? They asked him about rest and back-to-backs, and he's played every game, and he said, "Yeah, I understand the science, but my body has its own science."
Hell yeah.
Nick's feeling good about themselves.
Let's circle back to the Miami Heat
sorry,
because we got some guy hijacked the show on Jim Boeheim. Watching last night, it was there've been a couple low points here, and it's been a weird stretch of the schedule because you think you can't get lower, then they'll win at Philadelphia, and you'll be like, "See, that's what we can be," and they'll bring you right back in.
They can't shoot, Mike.
They're
Even the
incredibly
defense doesn't look. It doesn't look like normal
but
Heat
they're
defense.
a 500 team that can't shoot.
They shot 45% from 3 over the 3 games over the weekend. They went 2-1, and all they lost was the second game to the Knicks.
The defense, Chris, actually was really good in the fourth quarter.
they played well defensively.
Outside of Caleb Martin and Bam, I mean, I know Jimmy.
Vic did a good job defensively last night too. I'm gonna be real. I know Spo doesn't want to change his thing, but they were a better team when Caleb Martin was starting, and I think Kevin Love, because he can score, and their bench is dying for some points off the bench.
But Martin is playing all the late minutes. He's closing all the fourth quarters.
I want to say the last 5 games he's
All
played
of them.
all 12 minutes.
I mean,
in the fourth quarter.
I would say criticize the Heat all you want about last night, the turnovers, the lack of shooting. not only is Cleveland very good, but what Miami did defensively to Cleveland at the end of that game. They're very hard to stop offensively. Donovan Mitchell wasn't doing anything at the end of that game.
He wasn't doing anything all game long, really.
In watching Cleveland, you think that's a team that still needs to figure some things out and will go through some growing pains in the postseason potentially. But I want to have a more macro conversation about the Miami Heat because the last 4 years have been bizarre. And I know the data is hard to really get a firm grasp on because we were still dealing with a pandemic. We had bubble seasons. The year even after the bubble season was really weird. But you've had finals appearance swept out of the first round. Within a missed call of an instant replay on a Max Strus heel of possibly going to another NBA finals, and now it's looking like, at best, a first-round knockout. Why has this last 4 years been so uneven for one of the more consistent franchises?
I mean, you've answered some of their guys like Gabe Vincent and Max Strus going back to being the undrafted players they are. I'd add another element to this that has happened. I don't know that you can cite me a lot of good teams in the NBA who have as much dead money in Duncan Robinson and Kyle Lowry in their salary cap and are still great. Like the dead money of giving two guys.
They were dead asses last year, dude. They had dead money on Duncan and Kyle when it mattered most. They were doing fine without him in the postseason. So I understand for a long-term thing, and maybe that's the answer to my question. Why has this experience been so uneven over the last 4 years? I think there's several contributing factors, but I don't think it's just the Duncan and Kyle Lowry thing. Would that money be better spent? Absolutely. But they're not the first team to navigate bad contracts.
Yeah, look, to answer your question, bubble, they were a good team. They got to the bubble. They became a great team because whatever the circumstances helped them. They got immense shooting, whatever. Both teams that came out of the bubble, or all the teams that did well in the bubble, that next season all underperformed because they were fatigued. They had the shortest of off season.
With the exception of Phoenix, who did well in the bubble, but didn't make the postseason.
I'm talking about, the good teams in the
I
bubble.
understand.
Like Phoenix went and they played their 8 games and took their ass home. I'm talking about the teams that stayed until September, October.
The Lakers.
The Lakers, the Heat, even the
Nuggets had the furthest run out of all the teams that went to the finals.
Yeah. So you that's one, right? And then the year after that, it's like, okay, we're good. But also what happened was they hit on every undrafted weirdo diamond in the rough that year, which was last season. And I'm going to quote a text from the group change that me and you are in. And I'm not going to say who said this, but someone said, at some point, all the undrafted players who played is less of a badge of honor and more of an embarrassingly obvious discount bin. And I said, I got this from the 99-cent store isn't quite as impressive when it looks like you got it from the 99-cent store. That's what happened.